squatters in Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood, pretty nice neighborhood. Yeah, they just kind of moved in, changed the locks, tore out some carpet, put in a stripper pole, and started to do their OnlyFans recordings. Yeah, a landlord who hadn't authorized them at all. They took issue with this and had the police throw them out. This is a wild story. You're going to want to hear it. Here we go. Let's watch a little video, though. You remember that homeless homeowner living in a van, not down by the river, but in the cul-de-sac where his rental property was? Remember that guy? This is from Jesse Jones, same reporter. He's kind of a consumer advocate for Cairo. This is a wild. This one's a good one. Here we go. Let's watch it.
A landlord finds herself finding alleged squatters in her home. A couple moved in without permission.
And then they tore up the flooring and they started what you might call a risque remodel. Cairo 7's Jesse Jones checked it out.
Risque. OnlyFans.
Seattle police, open the door. We're going to force it open and you will be
Good.
arrested.
Good. Arrest him.
At this Queen Anne home.
You are trespassing. You do not have a lease.
The cops are getting a couple of alleged.
Do not have a lease.
We're opening this door with or without you.
Back up.
Oh, this makes me cringe. They're just.
Dave from Redmond is the landlord.
It's been a really stressful situation, and I just feel emotionally relieved. Not just that we got the squatters out, but we are making the neighborhood safe again.
Leica says it began in October when her property manager, Eric Pohl, found a couple living in the unit that should have been vacant.
They just said they have a lease from the owner and they're
some big views.
And I need to do whatever.
And when Leica confronted the couple, they were defiant.
Right to be here. That's the law.
That's the law.
Leica had seen owners caught up in eviction proceedings.
5-finger death punch t-shirt.
Given that landlord-tenant courts in King County are facing a backlog of nearly 600 cases, this would have been a serious financial blow.
Do not have a lease.
And making matters worse,
They had already started ripping out the carpet, and they told me that they were doing some plumbing work and some electrical work.
Just gonna do a little plumbing work. Electrical. Nothing big.
Basically destroying my property like one room at a time.
Look at that.
that started in the
Look at that.
with this.
But this is a stripper pole. It was not here. And I repeat, it was not here.
I don't.
And when Leica first called SPD, she says the cops told her this was a civil case.
I was extremely surprised to find out when she said the police said this was a civil matter.
Cynthia Melton is Leica's attorney.
It's very clear somebody broke the lock.
So the big, I'm going to stop it there for 1 second. So the big issue there is that if you have a lease, then it becomes a landlord-tenant situation, right? But the big difference here is these people literally trespassed, did not have a lease at all. Massive difference. And that's why they were able to go through this. They didn't have to go through the eviction process, but they had to get the police involved. But the police are typically like, all right, we don't know if there's a lease or there's not. And if there's not, then it takes a while to convince them this is a trespassing issue. It's not something that needs to be handled in the eviction courts.
They changed the locks and they entered into a property that they were not authorized to, and now they're refusing to leave. You know, that's trespassing, breaking and entering, whatever you want to call it. It's not a civil matter.
Leica and her team filed this
criminal
request to toss the alleged trespassers. And guess who knocked on the door next?
Seattle police. Sit down right here.
There she is. There's your mattress actress.
Police report to identify the alleged trespassers. Who are you? But they have not released it. One of the uninvited is from.
Who are you? Identify yourself. It's a police officer who's identified himself outside the home. How many times? And these people, these are con artists. There's nothing more. These are thieves. They are taking property that is not theirs, and they are working the system knowing that King County is so wildly backed up. King County is wildly backed up because during the pandemic, rent, it's not even a thing. Just no rent needs to be paid. If you have an issue because of COVID, then you can just not pay your rent. And in so many locations, this has happened.
Bellingham and lists herself as an OnlyFans influencer.
You asked me where my
Who lists themselves as an OnlyFans influencer on their LinkedIn profile? It's like putting stripper or drug dealer. I mean, these are not top-notch folks. These are people that literally just broke in, looked in the window. So if you're a landlord, think twice. Have all of your windows covered up. These folks figured out, oh, it's empty. Boom, we're in.
my cops were? You're my cops.
We have a lease. We tried to talk with you.
Afterward,
Look at that door frame. Just destroyed.
and it appears the couple was getting comfortable enough
Pipe.
to receive mail in their names.
There's
Getting mail.
cake. They were carving pumpkins.
The couple is now gone without going through the
There's that pole.
However, there will be one item
Yeah.
an immediate eviction.
I don't know if
Gnarly.
she was planning on creating content here or what she was doing.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
But it's just scary to think that.
For sure. She created content on that poll. And let's not pretend here, right? I mean, just why not? That's one of the reasons they wanted to break in. They've got their own space. You know, they're probably homeless, probably whacked out on drugs. Who knows? But those are the only kind of folks out there that are legit just going to straight up squat on somebody's unit. And it's Seattle, right? It's Seattle. So the Queen Anne neighborhood is to the north. It's directly to the north and a little bit northeast of downtown Seattle. You know where the Space Needle is? That's at the base, basically, of Queen Anne. Queen Anne sits up high at hill. It's got these amazing views. This was probably an old single-family home, I'm totally guessing, and it's been cut up into 3 units, and this was one of the units.
That's what they were going to use the unit for.
Jesse Jones, Carol 7 News.
And there's downtown Seattle up over
City
there.
Prosecutors tell us they are getting input from the landlord before making a decision on filing charges.
Computer models.
Let's be honest.
I want to highlight where I expect the wind to be strongest.
Let's be honest. Nothing's going to happen to those folks. They'll probably get another free crack pipe from the city of Seattle and be told, hey, don't squat anymore. And be a better human being next. Those folks aren't going to get prosecuted. This is Seattle we're talking about, right? Where the onus is on the landlord, the property owner. So could you imagine? Maybe we've got somebody in News for Reasonable People that's a regular contributor and regular listener on a lot of the premieres, and they've got somebody that's hunkered down in their garage. You can't get these vermin out, right? They're just like the gift that keeps giving. And you're like, they have more rights than the property owner. And that is the bottom line. How did this happen? Well, the good citizens of King County, state of Washington, in this case, it's Seattle. And I talk routinely about how so many property owners have come to us on the Summit Properties Northwest side and said, hey, I don't want the liability of being a property owner in Seattle because it's so one-sided as far as the protections that are afforded tenants, and the landlords have to pick up all the bills until it's proven in court. And because in King County, you've got 600 eviction cases backed up, because when you shut down the economy and you basically don't do any evictions throughout all of the pandemic, remember how that just kept getting kicked out and kicked out and kicked out for so many areas? This is what you're dealing with. You are dealing with con artists that know that that is the case, and they're gaming the system. They're taking advantage of the system. My previous podcast was on a family that is gaming the system in the Woodridge neighborhood of Bellevue. You can check out that podcast if you want. But the tenant is just not paying, and he's tying the landlord up in court and knows that this could take forever because of the backlog of cases happening because of the pandemic, when landlords basically had to foot all the bills, and tenants, there's basically such a one-sided deal. But this is because we've got politicians. This is because we've got folks that are in control of this that we've voted in. So Seattle, you get what you pay for. You elected a Shama Sawant. You elected a legit socialist, member that socialism works for those who don't, right? That's one of our better selling coffee cups. in our merchandise. Those people who don't work, these squatters, well, she's working the pole, right? I mean, figuratively and literally, she's working the pole. Did you see the film on the pole? Yeah, that pole is not a fresh pole. No, it's not. All right, let's read the article. There's a few things in this story. Seattle Police Department removed 2 squatters from Deviated Queen Anne triplex. Yes, it's been a stressful situation, landlord said, and I just feel emotionally relieved. Not just that we got the squatters out, but we are making the neighborhood safe again. You've got people in all over Seattle doing this kind of thing. And because the police don't want to get involved, because most of the time it's a civil matter and they're not the ones to say who's in the right or the wrong. Usually there's a lease involved. This story is interesting from the standpoint there's no lease. These people just broke in and did whatever the F they want, including putting up stripper pole. She's from Redmond. So this is an East Side landlord, right? Who is renting in Seattle, lives on the East Side, rents in Seattle, because you've always got a pool of people who want rental property in Seattle. But these kind of stories get out, and all the stories on people not paying their rent. There's somewhere around 11,000 housing units in Seattle that have been taken out of the rental pool and placed on the market for sale, whatever. And typically when these properties are resold, they are not purchased by an investor but get put back in the rental pool. That's because these properties are multi-million-dollar properties. They just are. And so unless you have a massive down payment, the numbers don't pencil. So each time one of these things gets put on the market, because somebody doesn't want the responsibility of having knuckleheads like this move in and squat and tear out your carpet and put in a pole to do a little twirling around. You are reducing the supply of rental housing in a city that is already super expensive and already doesn't have enough housing. So the very laws that these chuckleheads have put in place is restricting rental pool housing and causing rents to skyrocket. Not that hard to figure out, right? Not that tricky to figure out. So she's from Redmond, but rents out property in Seattle. In October, her property manager, Eric, we saw him, called her to let her know that a couple had moved into the top floor of the vacant Queen Anne triplex. When Eric knocked on their door, he said the couple told him they had a lease from the owner. I mean, that's how brazen these folks are, right? They're just crazy. They said they had a lease from the owner. They're not going to show it to me, and I need to do whatever. Basically, just F off. Hey, get out of here. Imagine getting that call. Hey, unit number 3 in the triplex. Did you put somebody in there and not let me know? This would be the manager, property manager. No, I didn't do that. All right. Well, there's somebody living in there. What? What do you mean there's somebody living in there? Well, I knocked on the door and they're in there and they're carving pumpkins and they're smoking some who knows what. And she's working the pole. Literally. Well, OnlyFans. I mean, this is the first one I've seen of that, but it makes sense. She needed a place to film her content, right? Oh, yeah. Deviated's attorney, Cynthia Melton, said this was a clear-cut case of trespassing, and that's why this issue was probably squared away so much faster than the vast majority of all evictions, because evictions got to go through the court system. I was extremely surprised to find out when she said the police said this was a civil matter, said Melton. They're going to go with that 9 times out of 10 because they don't know who has a lease or not. And so then what has to happen is you get an attorney involved. Attorney calls the police. Police says, well, if we go there and they have a lease, it is truly a civil matter, something along those lines. If they don't, then I'm surprised they didn't try and forge a lease. They weren't quite that sophisticated, right? And they literally changed the locks. Could you imagine? Key doesn't work anymore. I actually had that happen to one of my rental properties. I was doing before my divorce and before the Great Recession, I had done a really good size remodel on a 5-bedroom home here in Bellevue. And I was just about to turn it over to the new tenant. I had done carpet, paint, trim, molding, you name it, light kitchen, light bath updates. The house was rough when I got it, and I'd done a pretty major remodel myself, evenings and weekends, in my 30s, that kind of thing. And it was really nice. And I pulled up one day to my property and I'm like, what in the F? The key doesn't work. And then I went around to the front door and I was like, there was this notice, your house has been winterized by your lender. And it was, it was Green. What was the name of that lender? Greenpoint Mortgage. They thought my property was vacant and had been abandoned. So they changed out the locks and winterized, meaning they dumped all the water out of my hot water tank, they thought it had been abandoned. No, I was renovating it and it took me 2 months on my own. I'm free to do that, right? Yes, Mr. Reynolds, you can do that. Next time, let us know that you're in the renovation. I shouldn't have to. I can do what I want with my property as long as I'm making payments and I'm not just sitting on it, right? But these folks, they didn't really have that option. So one of the uninvited guests is from Bellingham and yet had charges I saw from, I think it was Yakima County on that piece of mail, the criminal system, the court system in Yakima. And they're from Bellingham, living in Seattle, working the pole. Yeah. And lists herself as an OnlyFans influencer on LinkedIn. Oh, people, make better decisions. Let's see. You're here for the bartending job. Okay. And you are an OnlyFans employee. You're an OnlyFans artist, a mattress artist or mattress actress is what they're going by now. So crazy. Some of those ladies though, and dudes, there's an audience for everything. They build up enough people. You have 15, 20,000 people paying $10 a month. You do the math, right? I mean, they're all over Instagram and TikTok and because they drive traffic from there with a link in their description to their thing. You see it all over. This gal, same thing. So you could see she wasn't anything great to look at, right? But if you're willing to do whatever, there's an audience. Couple is now gone. They left. Hopefully they're in jail. I bet you they were released almost immediately. Oh, got a little trespassing issue here. Oh, that's just not high on our priorities. Seattle isn't going to prosecute that. I'd be wildly shocked if they did. So the landlord says that she's just glad they're gone. I don't know if she was planning on creating content here. That's somebody just not wanting to admit that the content has been created. And if you really wanted to go down that road and do a little research, you could probably figure it out. Not that hard to do. But the content was created there. What a mess. I feel terrible for these landlords, but I think they got lucky. The house doesn't look like it was that damaged. You had some stuff. The plumbing and the electrical, when somebody tells you that they're remodeling that, and clearly that guy, he had it, all we really know about the boyfriend or whatever, I'd be wildly surprised if they're married, but we know they did drugs, right? Guy had a 5-finger death punch, which I'm a fan of. I do like some 5-finger death punch. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're not dealing with the most sophisticated of individuals when they literally are just moving on in and taking over. That shows you how quickly something like this can happen if you leave your property vacant. So get a handful of those Wise cameras. You're not going to be able to prevent people from getting in, but at least you will know as quickly as possible. Have your other tenants, kind of fill your other tenants in on what's going on. Hey, this is going to be vacant for this period of time. You'll get new tenants there. That way, if the other, neighbors kind of notice what's going on, but oftentimes as a landlord, when you're switching out tenants, you're just hustling to make that switch over. You're just hustling to make that change, get everything dialed in, get the credit report run, check out your handful of tenants that apply for the property. It's this big race to get to the first of the month or whatever when somebody moves in. But these people beat them to it, didn't they? And they just moved in. They were carving pumpkins in there. They had the cake that was eaten. Imagine having to pick up their stuff and then uninstall the stripper pole. This is a new one. This is a new one because it kind of ties in. All right. This is what people are doing. Number one for occupation. She literally had it on her resume on LinkedIn profile. OnlyFans. Before this podcast, I did not know that people were viewing this as that legit. I know you can make a ton of money as an OnlyFans entertainer, performer, recording artist, however you want to do that. But I didn't realize it had fallen, and this may not be true. I didn't realize it had fallen into actual occupation because I also haven't seen stripper on, previous job. I stripped at Johnny's down the street, right? Stripped at Rick's in Seattle. Therefore, I should be able to strip at your place. Does anybody that owns a strip club look at your resume? Nah, they just send you out front, right? All right, let's see what you got. Give us a little dance. And this whole concept, the whole thing is just so backwards and upside down though. But it's Seattle. This is what you got, right? Not unlike LA, not unlike a lot of these cities where you've got this massive protection for tenants, massive protection for squatters. I mean, I've had stories where people have told me, hey, Sean, here's the deal. This is how I got somebody out. I hired a couple of biker gang members and they went in there and just moved them out. And these people are doing something illegal, so they're not going to say much. Plus, they didn't want to get killed. Now, I can't say that I recommend that because, it's not going down the right paths. But in the case of Seattle, that's also probably not the wrong path either because you got so many crazy people. Maybe you hire some of the Gypsy Joker bike gang. It's one of my all-time greatest podcasts as far as numbers go. The Gypsy Joker's got in a fight with Antifa down in Portland, and it was just a little snippet of a story. I don't think it was much of a fight, but for whatever reason, that podcast has always been in the top handful of my podcasts. I mean, what are you known for, Sean? Well, Gypsy Joker's had not even really a fight, but a little pushing match with Antifa. Somebody got a little bit of footage and I podcasted it. It just went gangbusters. People just love that story. On top of another one is somebody was defending the homeless sweeps as being just unconstitutional. And I think it was Jonathan Cho asked this activist who's totally for trying to protect the homeless because their rights are being violated, living in a tent out on the sidewalk, shooting up drugs. Jonathan Cho asked, well, I mean, would you be willing to welcome, the homeless to your home? Where's your home? What's your home address? And she started to spit it out. And her boyfriend's like, I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe you've seen that one. But that one also, because of that interaction with that advocate, that was just a knucklehead. All right, you want all the homeless to go to your house? Okay, let's throw out your home address on a Jonathan Cho video and we'll just see how this works out, right? It's kind of like just going in and squatting. They knew they were buying some time and they're just rolling the dice. Hey, we've been in here long enough. Why don't we just get a stripper pole? Why don't we just install? Oh, we got to take out the carpet. Yeah. All right. Let's rip the carpet out. You could see that. And there's hardwoods underneath. Well, now I guess the rosy side of this is new tenants are going to get some new hardwood, or maybe you put carpet over the top. I don't know. Right. But these people, yeah, if I find out anything else on this one, I will definitely let you know. Just remember, this is not the homeless homeowner in a van. This is the OnlyFans squatters with stripper pole. That's how we're going to refer to it down the road. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.